Welcome to the King of the Court podcast with Ben Riggs and Ben Staten.
Now, can you think of any reason that Golden State would say no to that trade?
Because there's a better one out there for them.
I think there's one.
That's the one I would say. Yeah.
I think there's one reason they would say no to that trade. That's the potential of landing LeBron James.
I feel like we need some dun 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 type of music right here. But
it really is though. And for starters, I think that before anybody goes, oh shit, we're doing the LeBron to Golden State trade rumors again. Like, you got to remember, man, Golden State tried to make this happen.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't like...
the Lakers were amenable to it. They were like, just go talk to LeBron's people. If he wants to do this, we'll talk. But, we're not going to,
LeBron is the one who killed it. And, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that it's probably not going to happen. But with that said, LeBron is, one of, if not the greatest basketball minds to ever be on a court. He can't look at the roster in LA right now and think this is a title contending roster. Now, he may be eyeing and working to try to make some other trade happen that brings people to LA that could potentially change that. I think that's difficult. But when you look at the potential for him and Steph Curry to link up in the twilight of their years and play under Steph Curry with Draymond and contend for another championship, the fact that, he wouldn't have to uproot his family from LA. He could, travel back and forth and play in Golden State and then live in LA. Probably wouldn't be the most convenient thing, but he could definitely make it work. I think it would be great for the NBA. I think it would be great for Steph and LeBron. And I can't think of two old heads linking up that would be a more dangerous combo. I mean, we saw it in the Olympics.
Yeah, I think that there is sort of a fairy tale narrative to this. We had the Olympics where two grizzled rivals, linked up for the first time and won gold. And this would be a perfect, way to have, to serve as a capstone to their career. I think the big concern last year was, how is this going to make LeBron's legacy look if he just goes into pure ring chasing mode, because everything he does is being measured against Michael Jordan, and that's what his team wants to be. They want to make sure they're not actively harming his reputation, his legacy, and so that was the stated reason why in the ESPN piece that covered it, why they basically put the brakes on it. But I think that there's been a recognition of a couple factors. One, LeBron has declined, from last year. This isn't a guy who's in the top 5 players of the league discussion anymore. So that means that's a different situation when someone like that moves than than when someone where he is now, which is in sort of the top 20-ish range. And I think that Olympics
real quick, for all the LeBron stans out there, the dude is about to be 40. To say he's in the top 20 discussion is so far from being a slight. I mean, it is unbelievable that you're talking about a 40-year-old being in the top 20 of the most athletic professional sports league in the world.
Yes. No, I completely agree with that. But I also think that people love the Olympics this year with them teaming up. I think that, the Curry and LeBron, they both carried the team individually at different times during the Olympic process. Curry sort of served as the closer, and LeBron was the one who was able to sort of carry it. But I think it creates a really fun narrative for them both to close out their careers together and hope and try to get one more title. I do think that we're at a position in time where things have changed, where this wouldn't be looked down upon in that, except by people who are actively looking.
Do you see this as ring chasing, though? Like, there's so much of a fairy tale narrative surrounding this and like the fact that LeBron and Steph are so clearly in their the twilight of their years. I mean, I know it's about maximizing both of the remaining years, and by definition, maximizing means trying to win a championship. But it doesn't have the same feel of KD to the Warriors.
Yes. So where ring chasing becomes an issue to me is when players leave teams before that team has exhausted itself to go to a better contender. So KD leaving the Thunder for the Warriors. That Thunder team was in a position to win a title if he stayed right then. Like they had been fantastic. They nearly had upset the Warriors, the 73-win Warriors. They had beaten the 67-win Spurs, and that like that he could have won there, and it was too early. Everyone, Westbrook was in his prime. Ibaka was in his prime. Like he had the core there to do it. That is. So that's what I call ring chasing. This is very similar. Talking obviously a different caliber of player, but this is very similar to when Clyde Drexler left the Blazers in the mid '90s to team up with Hakeem. The Lakers. He stayed with the Lakers for 8 years. The roster they built up there, it's clearly run its point. The team's on a decline. It's in the team's interest, honestly, to start thinking about rebuilding, just like it was with that Blazers team, to start rebuilding at that point in time. It is in LeBron's interest, like the ring. There's nothing to set up a standard that requires players to just stay in bad situations because of it's stupid, and that's not actually what people are talking about. Like everyone understood Lillard wanting to leave, leave
fact,
Portland.
they got to the point with Lillard where I remember Stephen A. Smith making the argument that, like, he wants Lillard to leave because he thinks that that's an example of his, like, competitiveness coming to the forefront, and him just being willing to acquiesce to a bad situation wasn't very competitive. And I agree with Stephen A. Smith about that. Like, I think the right thing for Lillard to do is force himself out of Portland and put him in a situation to be competitive in the last years of his career.
Yeah. So no, I don't call this traditional ring chasing. I do think that it will also create fantastic narratives of sort of an evil empire teaming up. To they. So it's gonna create it's gonna energize. It's gonna juice ratings. You're gonna have imagine like the story of the Celtics coming back up and this team just sort of coming together against Tatum going up against Curry and LeBron after the Olympics. Tatum and Brown after Brown getting not getting on the team. Tatum being benched for these guys that would be a fantastic just off the bat that would just be a fantastic finals narrative. So no, I would be excited.
Under Armour suddenly becomes part of the conspiracy too.
Under Armour versus Under Armour versus what it could be they're all like
Under Armour and Nike team up to take down Jaylen Brown. But
Jaylen Brown and Jordan Brand. I think this would be fun. I also think that there's we talk about the problem with the NBA. One of the things is that there's this sort of LeBron, he's just there, but his team isn't good. And I think the league, a lot of people doesn't know what to do with him right now. You put the Lakers on national television against a bad team, it's a fun game. But you put them on television against even a team of the caliber of the Nuggets, they get stomped. They get curb stomped.
And and I also think
hard to capitalize on him. But if you put him on the Warriors, then that's a media marketing.
100%. The other thing too,
the ads write themselves.
I think in Golden State, because LeBron's averaging 23, 8, and 9 right now on 50% shooting from the floor and 36% from three. Well, let's take the 3-point percentage because I think this is a sort of a good comparison between the two teams and how it would so drastically impact LeBron's performance on the floor. In LA, LeBron's probably, unless Dalton connects on the floor, LeBron's probably the most dangerous 3-point shooter. And even still, Dalton connects so young. You don't want him to get hot, but there are nights where he comes out and you can tell like he doesn't have it tonight. He's young. He's going to be streaky and inconsistent. Like LeBron's the one that you just don't want to get hot from three. LeBron's the one on that team you don't want knocking down 8 threes in the game, 6 threes in the game or whatever, right? If he goes to Golden State, he's at best the third most dangerous 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
So he's going to get a lot more open looks from three in Golden State than he would in LA. And I think there's a lot of, the way the motion offense, the way that Golden State, Steve Kerr runs things, LeBron's passing ability, in the same way that Draymond Green excels as a creator in Golden State. I mean, LeBron would be that much better.
Well, before we analyze like the lineup stuff, let's get to the trade for folks so that people we can talk about the actual pieces.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I think this is where the new CBA this has been talked about all of the time, all over the place. But the new CBA does make trades like this that are honestly one of the things that make the league fun, much more difficult because they're all rules about aprons and like where you can aggregate contracts, whether you can make players like can you trade one big contract for multiple small contracts? Who can do that? Who can be traded when? So you have to actually like this becomes sort of a convoluted trade, but the core of it remains the same three pieces that the Warriors would basically be trading probably for any major player.
So
and
the same
that
three guys you package for Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, so that's Wiggins, who I could see the Lakers being very interested in as sort of a, tread water, really solid piece, good defensively. Kuminga, who is the potential all-star, the core of the trade for anyone trading for them, and Melton. And then you just got to really find a way to make the salaries work on the back end. For Golden State's end, you probably have to put in Pajemski, who I know, this is the front office seems to really, we said this before, they value him a lot. He's having a down year, but he's a type of player that he's the prototype of player that the Lakers are really going to want in a trade like this. They're going to want a shooting guard who can both shoot and is not like a turnstile on defense and is young and on a cost-controlled contract. Those are three items that they're going to want. That, and he sort of fits that bill. You're also trading for LeBron James, so like you're going to have to give up some stuff, and then and then just to make the salaries work, you also have alternative stuff where you have to basically get these to like identical match salaries because you can't really have one side or the other. So in a bemusing thing, we are going to make the first ever father-son trade. We're going to add Bronny James to this trade, as well as Maxwell Lewis, just to make the salaries work.
It's also interesting to note that the one team who publicly said that they did not draft Bronny James purely out of respect for LeBron, but that they were interested and wanted him, was the Golden State Warriors.
Yes. And I do think, like, for whatever you say on this, it would be very odd to like draft LeBron James' son, trade LeBron, and then just keep his son around.
And to be quite honest with you, like if you think about the type of players that Golden State has shown interest in and developed over the years, like Bronny kind of fits that prototype. Like, I don't have any problem with Bronny and Golden State.
And then you have to throw in Maxwell Lewis. Just literally, he's literally being thrown in just to make the salaries match.
Yeah.
So to recap, we're going Andrew Wiggins, DeAnthony Melton, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Pajemski. I think that you probably have to throw in your 2025 first round pick, for LeBron James, Bronny James, and Maxwell Lewis.
I think you'd absolutely have to do the draft capital. And the reason I say that is I think Andrew Wiggins, Kuminga, and Pajemski are all talented, interesting young assets. First of all, none of which come close to like the box office marketing level of LeBron James. In all fairness, very few, if anybody, really the only other person who does is Steph. But two, all those guys are good and they have their, particularly Kuminga Kuminga and Wiggins. I'm sorry, drew a blank there for a second. Kuminga and Wiggins
There's
certainly.
going to be a test on who's in this trade, by the way. So you better, I'm going to make sure you remember all the names.
Yeah, Kuminga. So Kuminga and Wiggins both have their strong suits. Neither one of them are as versatile offensively as LeBron. I think the Lakers team post trade would be a much better defensive team than they are right now.
Yeah, and like Melton, like he's a free agent, but like so like he could leave at the end of the year. But he, when healthy, is the type of player that fits what the Lakers need, like a defensive ball hawk type of guard.
Oh,
That
it also opens up Rui kind of becomes a second unit player or even potentially superfluous on this team because now you slot somebody like Pajemski into the starting point guard role.
yes,
Who's a little bit more of a two-way player, and you put Kuminga where LeBron was, and you've got Andrew Wiggins out there too. Like Andrew Wiggins helped shore up your defensive backcourt issues, and then you're probably running a lot of two-man action with Austin Reeves and Anthony Davis, and doing some in and out stuff with Kuminga and Anthony Davis.
yeah, you're a playing team. This isn't a team. This isn't a trade that's going to make the pick that you're giving the Hawks this year. Uh, like the first overall pick in the draft. Like this is a legit. Like you're playing Reeves, Pajemski, Wiggins, um, yeah, Reeves, Pajemski, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Davis. That's a solid starting five. If you want to, like, you can keep Davis around to the end of the year. Once you get your own pick
But
back,
it
you can trade
enables
him
you
for
to
more
trade
capital
Rui. It enables you to trade Rui in a separate trade and potentially bring in another backup big.
and get off the D'Angelo Russell carousel, which they've
Yeah,
sort of been stuck on.
yeah,
So
I agree with you 100%.
yeah, but the real exciting one,
Well, but real quick though, on the Lakers front, I
Yeah.
think another piece that is important to mention is if the reports are true about what happened last time Golden State offered this, obviously Golden State's got to offer a real trade, but it sounds like LeBron's kind of in the driver's seat here.
yes,
If LeBron wants them to trade him, it's just up to the front offices to make it work because it sounds like he can kind of call the shot and get out of this if he wants.
yes, 100. You have to remember exactly what the discussion was at the end of that trade deadline last year. The Lakers front office. This wasn't just LeBron nixing it, but that being a pretext for the Lakers front office saying no. Lakers front office said, "Okay, this is like this was brought up to them by the Warriors, and they're like, this is the first we're hearing of this. We don't know if like LeBron hasn't mentioned to us that he's interested in being traded. If you could, if he comes to us and says this, then we'll consider it. But we're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything until we get word from his camp." And then the Warriors told his camp this, and his camp was like, "No, we're not going to push this." But the Lakers were in the reports, and they never disputed this. They were open to considering this, to considering a LeBron trade if that was what he wanted. And that goes with the Lakers' ethos, the Buss family ethos of accommodating stars to try to attract future stars. You work with them to build strong relationships. And I think that, like, this is why I compare it to the Clyde Drexler trade. That people forget how good the very late 80s, early 90s Trailblazers were. That was a team that had went to the finals twice, should have gone three times. The Magic's Lakers sort of upset them. They were deep, they were talented, they had a strong core. And after about a 5-year window, starting around 94, and after 94, the team declined because everyone got old. Drexler was no longer at that point a top 5 player in the league. He was he was a top 5 player in the league at that point at his prime. And the Blazers needed to rebuild. The Lakers team here, this is too old. The core is too old. Davis is 32. LeBron is 40. Like this is if this wasn't LeBron, this is a natural point where the team would be moving to a rebuilding phase. That is why you've seen them conserve their trade assets, their draft picks. They've been refusing to trade them because they had to either make the choice of going all in and making a gamble on all their future assets and go in on a 39-year-old LeBron, 40-year-old LeBron, or to sort of stealthily begin a rebuild. So LeBron leaving, as long as they get good return for it, actually makes sense for them in terms of the life cycle of their team.
Oh, I think it makes total sense for the Lakers. The reason I think that the caveat about Golden State was the one who initiated this to begin with is that I think that shows that the Golden State front office either was interested in this move or, some star power on Golden State's team. It sounds like it was Draymond, and I can't imagine Steph being out of the loop on it. But it sounds
they're not just going to be like, "Yo, Steph, glad you came into work today. By the way, LeBron's here now."
So, like as you said, the Lakers accommodate their stars. Like they have a history of doing that, and they've done right by LeBron James up until this point. I mean, and I fully expect that if LeBron wanted out, the Lakers front office would be a good faith partner with the Warriors front office in figuring out a way to make this work to get LeBron to Golden State. I fully expect that would be the case. The Warriors front office has seemed to had an approach of, or at least tried their best to have the approach of, we're not shackled to the previous era. Like they were willing to part ways with Clay. Honestly, after Bob Myers left, it seems like it was, they were trying to start on a fresh sheet. I don't know that if Steph, Draymond, and Steve Kerr are all pushing you to go in a certain direction, if you're going to be able to withstand that pressure. And then I think the impetus would once again be on Golden State's front office to work with LA's front office to make it happen. And that seems to be what happened in the previous iteration of this, where it seemed like Draymond, and it's hard to imagine Steph wasn't involved as well in pushing them to make this happen. So with that said, obviously LeBron does not help you build for the future.
No.
And this move would definitely be Golden State not focused on the future, but focused exclusively on maximizing, really doubling down on the remaining pieces of the previous generation. And so you'd be looking at LeBron, Steph, Draymond Green, Trace Jackson Davis, Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, and Kevon Looney kind of carrying this team. Am I missing anyone?
They got some good other pieces. They got Kyle Anderson, who I think is an underrated piece. They got Gary Payton II. I think what you're probably getting in terms of starting five after this trade is Curry, Moody, LeBron, Draymond, Looney as a starting five. And with honestly just for like shooting, actually, you could keep LeBron's a good enough shooter at this point, especially that you could keep him on there with that. So that's like.
I also think it's kind of a matchup dependent thing with Looney, because LeBron also brings so much size depending on who you're going up against. Like you might not have to have Looney on the floor.
Yeah, I agree. And then the bench, and this is a decent bench of Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, Gary Payton, Trace Jackson Davis, and Lindy Waters.
And depending on who you're playing and the situation as well, like Buddy Hield's probably a closer in a lot of those games.
Yeah, and and you can also you can pace things. Like you could have lineups with LeBron running point with Hield, Moody, Jackson Davis is sort of a rim runner. And we've seen no shock to anyone who knows basketball, Steph and LeBron play well together. Like they do. I think LeBron is also probably the perfect player to help keep Draymond a little more under control. These are the two players Draymond respects the most in NBA basketball.
I like Trace Jackson Davis as a player, but to be honest with you, I think Draymond helps make him better. Draymond's an excellent passer.
Yes,
but with that said, he is a entirely different kind of a threat in a two-man game, or as a play creator than LeBron is, because Draymond is a lot more limited with the ball in his hands. I mean, in fact, what you're looking for is screens that he's setting and passes that he can make.
Yes.
With LeBron, he can set the screen, make any pass. I mean, damn near any pass anybody in the league could make. And then he himself becomes a scoring threat as well. So I think a player like Trace Jackson Davis, you would actually see increased production from if for no other reason than like his rim running would be maximized with LeBron.
100%. This is a fun team. Like if you get this, I don't know if they come out of the West. I think that there's some good teams, but like this is a lineup. This is a physical. This is a strong team. This is a team with good shooting. This is now a team. It's old, so like it's one injury and then you're back to the issues you had before. But it would allow LeBron to play a more limited role. Like with the bench there, like LeBron needs to get on a 28 minutes a game type of like that's just probably best for his age and just keeping it
And
maximized.
we all know Kerr doesn't have any problems with a superstar sitting on the bench, so.
No, and it's going to be hard for LeBron to complain with Curry doing it already. Like it's just the classic Spurs thing where like a player comes in and like
Well,
gets mad that Pop's yelling at him, and it's
but
like, well, Duncan's taking it.
my thing with LeBron and the 82 games and the amount of minutes he's playing in LA, I don't think it's as much to do with LeBron insisting on playing high minutes and a high number of games. I think it's LeBron insisting on winning. And
Yes.
that's what it requires for him to win in LA.
Yes. I know. I agree with you.
That's the thing I think, and so in Golden State, I don't necessarily think that would be necessary. But because we're kind of up against it, let me ask a couple of questions of you about these potential trade scenarios. So the same question I asked earlier about Houston, if they were to make the trade for Jimmy Butler, I'll ask that. Does this put Golden State ahead of Dallas or OKC in your mind?
I would put them ahead of OKC matchup wise. Just the strength and physicality, I think, becomes a big issue. I also think that they suddenly have like the passing to really cause issues to OKC's swarm style defense because you could just get the ball out really fast and catch some open shooters. I think Dallas.
You've
I
got two
think
guys on that team with Draymond and LeBron that are really difficult to swarm.
yeah, and Curry's Curry's
They're
also
just not swarming Curry because he doesn't stand.
Yeah, and I think that it becomes. I think you're going to see. I think Dallas is a really interesting proposition. I think that's a really interesting matchup. I still think that they struggle with the Luka answer in that scenario, and I think that Luka is a smart enough player specifically to exploit some of the defensive issues this lineup's going to have, which is they're going to be vulnerable to rim runners. With LeBron's mobility is a little compromised. There's if you're playing Draymond, he's great, but he's small, and Luka's going to do everything he can to draw Draymond specifically out as the help defender. And LeBron, I mean, the Nuggets do this against the Lakers all the time. LeBron as a help defender, as a rim help defender, is just difficult for him because he just has difficulty getting moving fast enough to be able to like affect lobs. That's literally what the Nuggets' key play against them, which is the Aaron Gordon just hang out in the dunker spot until Jokic collapses the defense and move it. But I think they could absolutely win a series. I think it would be a tough one. Like it's hard. Like that's a lot of points. That's just a lot of points you have.
You think they could win a series in general, or you think they could win a series against OKC or a
series against Dallas specifically? I think this is a Western Conference Finals team if this trade happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the size against OKC, you're right about. Like, I think they just become sort of a roster that can kind of bully.
Yes.
Maybe. Because, I kind of feel that way about the Lakers against OKC too. But the problem is Draymond offensively isn't the kind of guy who's going to bully you in this, like the way Anthony Davis does, right? I don't know. I don't think I could. I think I struggled to put them ahead of OKC in a 7-game series against Dallas. I think that Moody could potentially match up with Kyrie. I don't think that's going to go that great for Golden State. I don't think it's a terrible matchup. I think it's more.
You see a lot of Gary Payton in that series.
Yeah. I mean, like you're going to have to put. even still, I think there are very few people who match up, very well with Kyrie, especially when the defense has shifted
Yeah.
so much to deal with Luka. I think that Dallas, on top of the rim running threat that Gafford and Lively would pose, and it would force you to play Kayvon Looney.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and Dallas's depth too. Like, one of the things OKC gets you with is how little drop off there is when they go to that bench.
Yeah. In fact, it's a better defensive bench. It's just a swarm. It's like 6'5" dudes who are physical and strong and swarm the shit out of you. That's basically
Yeah,
what they.
yeah. I
But yeah,
I think, like, when you look at Dallas's bench, like, I think I think there's too much coming off the bench in Dallas as well.
but there's some like really tantalizing lineups, like a Curry, Moody, LeBron, Draymond, Kyle Anderson at small ball five, like passing lineup. Like that's you're going to see some of the best passing ever of those five. That five. Like that's great. That's good. It's you're going to be able to. You can even for spot minutes put LeBron at the five against smaller bigs or bigs that aren't going to like take LeBron to the post. Like I would like for example, I would not have an issue putting LeBron at the five against Holmgren because Holmgren's going to want to hang out the paint. It's not going to back him off, or even against Hartenstein. Like I think Hartenstein because he's not a post up player. I think you might struggle on some
Oh,
rebounding.
I'm fine with putting LeBron on Holmgren because
Yeah,
I actually think Holmgren's going to end up hanging out in
at the
the
3 point line.
3-point line, and I think LeBron's strong enough to keep Holmgren from beating him off the dribble.
Yes.
Now, I think that I don't know, like the OKC Golden State matchup, I'm a little more iffy on. I think if I was forced to place a bet on that series, I would take OKC over Golden State with LeBron, but I think it would be close 7-game series. I definitely like Dallas. I feel like the matchup problems are there's just too many. I think Luka creates matchup problems for them. You can't put LeBron on Luka in a 7-game series. Luka would wear him out.
Yeah.
At this age. And then I think Kyrie sort of on an island with anyone's a matchup problem. And then I think you've got Gafford and Lively plus PJ Washington. Like there's just, and then like the versatility that Clay, Quentin Grimes, Najee Marshall, all that provides you. Now maybe a more interesting question for the purposes of this podcast is does it make them better than Houston?
Yes.
I agree.
I think
It does not position them better for the future than Houston.
no. This is, but this
But
is yeah.
for this season, it makes them better than Houston.
But you'll see teams will make trades to hemorrhage, but basically to leverage the future just for like a Curry type of star, one who's been there for 15 years, and they just want to make sure that his twilight years are maximized because they owe him so much. The Warriors, that makes total sense. Like adding in a LeBron, or even a Jimmy Butler and like making a trade for that makes sense at that time. That time
Well,
frame.
the other thing with LeBron too that makes it make a lot of sense is like from the sheer point of view of business,
Oh
it
yeah,
pay for itself.
they're gonna make those Inter Miami Messi tickets, which are like going at like
Hundred,
$1,000 a
hundred
seat.
percent.
Look like child's play. This is the Bay Area too.
Yeah.
They can you're gonna start seeing bleacher seats at $2,000. But the and like the jersey sale alone. I mean that's why they're gonna get a first round pick because they're gonna
TV
yeah.
contracts. Like, I mean, it's going to be everywhere.
You're gonna see they're gonna go to the Lakers and be like, I mean, LeBron at this point isn't worth Kaminga, Pajemski, and a first, and they're like, but the $500 million in merchandising you're gonna get is absolutely worth that. And they're like, point well taken. Here's your first round.
They would be the most watched league pass team in the league by far.
Oh no, you suddenly every single game would be a nationally televised game.
But the question becomes, and maybe this is the more interesting way to frame the question, is if the Warriors were to deal for LeBron, but at the same time, the Rockets traded Brooks, Adams, Green, and Holiday for Jimmy Butler.
Yeah,
Who do you like more, Rockets with Jimmy Butler or Warriors with LeBron?
Warriors with LeBron.
I agree.
And I think it's actually a pretty decisive victory. I think the benefit of LeBron is going to take a lot less fitting, like he's going to fit in with that team quicker than Butler is. Butler requires your team adapting to a sort of a unique style of play for a player. He shoots a little more a few more threes this year, but this is a guy who was a power forward from like kind of a different era on offense. But he's in a small forward's body. Like he doesn't shoot a lot of threes. He sort of hugs the mid range a lot. He'll do some stuff in the post. But he also is like a connective tissue player. Like you have to adapt to playing with Butler. Like there's not a lot of players like him. LeBron, well, one of these players have all like the Warrior stars have all played with him before. Like they just came off the Olympics.
And the coach just coached him.
The coach just coached him. He's going to come in and fit in. They have, they have a bench. They have a deep bench. They're going to be able to keep him fresh. I think that team, hits it they come out of the gates really strong. And I think that especially I also think there's at this point, you're saying analyze this 3 years from now, the Warriors team's going to be like if LeBron's still in the league at that point, like that's that's like 40-year-old Curry, 45-year-old LeBron, 40-year-old Draymond, like that. We're talking about like they're playing
Uncle Drew shit.
Yeah, we're talking about a bunch of graybeards, but right now I think this year would be I would definitely put the Lakers. I think that Lakers, I'm not the Lakers. I think that Warriors team with LeBron is a very fascinating team. I really do.
I agree with you. I think that you have in OKC, you have a really, really, really good defensive team.
Yes.
With a great pure scorer. And currently without Holmgren on the floor, you have a good, number 2 option in Jalen Williams. One of the things I think Thunder fans need to pay attention to is that Jalen Williams, wasn't having the best year at the beginning of the year when Holmgren was on the floor. And then when Holmgren stepped off, Williams seemed to start doing better.
Yep.
And also, everybody's very excited to see Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein on the floor together. I'm a little more cynical or skeptical about what the spacing on the floor is going to look like with them two on the floor at the same time. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a great pairing, and I think it could also end up messing up some stuff for Jalen Williams. But I think I'm not saying that I think this team, under any iteration of it, OKC, isn't a top 3 team in the West. I think that they are. I think Dallas, since Nico Harrison arrived, I think their front office has outperformed every other front office in the NBA. And I, quite frankly, don't even think it's close. I think they've absolutely killed it. And I think that they've built a roster that, to me, is the clear cream of the crop in the West. And it's not the type of young roster that you have in Houston. But one of the problems for Houston moving forward, in my mind, is 2 things. One, in the 4 to 5 year range, which is kind of where I think Dallas is built. That 4 to 5 year range, Dallas is positioned very well to be right there in the mix of things in the West. And then once you get past that 4 to 5 year range, you've got Area 51 down in San Antonio.
Yeah, it's Wemby time at that point. Yeah.
And so, the thing with the NBA is like all this talk about Houston having the best young, talented roster in the NBA is all great and well. But you need someone who can be a gravitational center, and they just don't have that. And Jimmy Butler doesn't answer that question for them when you talk about competing 3 to 5 years out.
No, the Jimmy Butler trade alone is not enough to make them a title contender, and you would have to be paired either this year, but probably down the line. But the problem with the Butler thing is he's not going to last much longer with a secondary trade, which is why if I'm them, I'm holding my fire on Butler and going for someone who's like a top 10 player in the league because you have the assets, you have the young players that you can be picky. And there is still there is reason to just let this young team for now keep the core and let them still learn, continue to develop because they're not going to stagnate without a big trade right now. They are going to still continue to improve and get better.
Yeah.
So I completely agree on that. I think that in terms of the West, it will be well. Stepping back, the other thing you asked earlier about is this a ring chasing move? Like when we're complaining about ring chasing, what we're actually complaining about is less so that someone's going to a team to win a ring because we actually ask players to do that, as you mentioned with Damian Lillard. It's that player joins a team on the brink and it just makes them unbeatable, and then it's not fun to watch that anymore.
Yeah,
And
100%.
like that was what the complaint about the KD Warriors were, was that it was legit boring to watch.
And I mean, honestly, man, I think that's what drives a lot of the hate for Boston. I mean, I think some of that is Boston is just one of those teams that, like, they're like a lightning rod team. Like, you either love Boston or you hate Boston, and it's just
yeah,
always been that way. So there's just a certain amount of that. And I think there's a lot of people who some of the animus towards Boston is driven by the fact that they look at Boston and they say, yeah, I mean, a lineup with Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, and Jalen Brown. Um, like, what
yeah.
are we talking about? We're talking about like damn near finals
Generationally good team.
NBA level guys.
Yeah, and but that's not what would happen with this Lakers team. Like you're adding LeBron with this
Golden
fucking
State.
Warriors team, with this Golden State team, but that's not what would happen with this Golden State team. You're adding LeBron, but this is still a team that's beatable, and it's and so the games are still going to be fun. It's still like this would still be like I don't think this is a team that like in a finals necessarily be favored against the Celtics. I think that I don't think that they would necessarily be favored against OKC and from a betting perspective, in the Western Conference Finals or the semifinals. So, and
Yeah,
you,
I'm
yeah,
not putting.
and so you're
I mean,
not,
I'm hesitant with OKC, and I wouldn't favor them against Dallas.
yeah, and so it would lead to fun basketball, would lead to competitive basketball. They're not shoe-ins, and that's what we want. We
I
want,
agree. I
yeah,
agree with you
yeah,
100%.
yeah. That's what we want. And
When
so,
you can strike the balance between making the games more interesting, fun, and competitive, and creating a must-see TV narrative, which is exactly what LeBron to the Warriors would do.
would
It
do.
would strike that balance. It would be, I mean, literally, I think you would see an uptick in NBA League Pass subscriptions overnight
Yep.
because you can't put the Warriors on national television every night. And I think that, like, on nights where they're not the ESPN or the TNT game, people are going to be tuning in to League Pass to watch them. I think every day when you turned on ESPN or Fox Sports to watch the sort of the talking heads, they'd be talking about LeBron and the Warriors. Um,
Yep.
there are obviously some people who would get exhausted by that, but between the group of people who hate the Warriors and hate LeBron and the people who love Steph and the Warriors and love LeBron, like, I think you would have two very large camps who are absolutely enthralled by what has happened for both positive and negative reasons, and it would be good for the business of the NBA.
Yep.
And I think from a competitive standpoint, what you would have done is you would have created um, probably I think it'd be safe to say you've created probably the third or fourth best team in the Western Conference with this trade,
Yes.
and pushed Houston into that fifth spot.
Yep.
Um, maybe the fourth spot, but there'd be an awful lot of competition in the like between, say, Memphis and Houston for who's going to be the fourth or fifth best team in the West.
100%. So yeah, this is like one of those trades which would be pretty cool if it actually happened. Sorry, as Lakers fan, I know you
100%.
probably wouldn't be that excited to lose LeBron.
Well, but unfortunately, what you might end up seeing is LeBron staying put in LA and Brandon Ingram coming to LA. Yeah.
The injured Brandon Ingram. Yeah.
Well, my thing with Brandon Ingram being listed, it is bizarre to me that he fired his agent, hired Clutch Sports, and then suddenly had an ankle injury, a low ankle sprain that has him out indefinitely. Like it sounds like you know the forces construing to send him to LA. So, but anyway, just sort of as a recap, like both of us agree that Jimmy Butler to Dallas makes absolutely no sense from Dallas's point of view, and doesn't really even make Dallas better, given how many pieces they'd have to give up in order to make that happen. Jimmy Butler to Houston makes more sense than Jimmy Butler to Dallas, but long term doesn't really make a lot of sense for the Houston Rockets, given that they would have to give up so many pieces of their young core. Or
Timelines don't match. Just timelines don't match.
Timelines really don't match. And then finally, we're both fully on board pushing for really hope that Draymond is working behind the scenes to make LeBron to the Warriors happen.
Yeah.
And we think Jimmy Butler to the Warriors makes less sense than LeBron, but also makes sense.
Yep. And I think, it's these. I applaud the Warriors for trying to maximize, like they're doing it in sort of a bizarre way, like sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back with the Kuminga and, Podziemski valuations. But I do applaud them for recognizing that, Curry has meant literally everything as someone who is from the Bay Area, and grew up with John Starks. An old John Starks is the centerpiece of a Warriors team after he left the Knicks.
Well, I've been told that the best backcourt in NBA history was Mitch Richmond and Tim Hardaway.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good, but I don't think I would. That's a shacklequism basically. Like this is a guy I played against. He's better than everyone else. But
100%.
This was a team before Curry that based on the last 20 years leading up to that, had basically had one little brief blip of fun basketball with the Baron Davis, Steven Jackson, and even that, no one thought that team was going to win a fucking title. And so Curry's meant everything for that franchise, and I applaud them for looking to maximize his final years, even if it comes a little bit to detriment for in the future, because that's what you're supposed to do for your great players. You're supposed to try to maximize them and everything they do for you, so that they can have the best legacy, and also, in conjunction, that's going to benefit you. It may mean that your rebuild's a little longer, but it's going to benefit your franchise. It's going to benefit your, the lore and the greatness of it. The Warriors.
Well, let's also not pretend like from an ownership point of view either that like LeBron's bad for business. Like, no. I mean, it's not like the ownership of Golden State's going to hurt bringing in LeBron James.
No.
Yeah. Going to do great.
Yeah. And so, I think it's great. And I do. It's one of those things that whenever I get a Shams notification, I'm gonna. There's gonna be part of me hoping.
Shams not a Shamsquake.
Shamsquake, yeah. Whenever you get a Shamsquake, we're gonna, I'm gonna be secretly hoping that it's, LeBron James has been traded, and it's gonna be to the Warriors because that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. No. All right. Well, we fixed all the roster problems. Jimmy Butler, unfortunately, will be staying in Houston. I'm sorry, in Miami, and LeBron's heading to Golden State. And unfortunately, he'll lose a close series to the Mavericks in the Western Conference. But nevertheless, it's good for the NBA. It's good for the fans. Everybody would love it.
Oh, we got to ask, who would you be? How much would you struggle with a LeBron versus Luka Western Conference Finals? Like, I feel like that should tear you apart.
I actually wouldn't struggle with it. Like,
listeners, this is a lie. Like, this isn't like that's why the dog just appeared in the background. It's a complete lie. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't struggle with it. The reason I wouldn't is, for one, if LeBron came out of it, it's not like it would hurt my soul. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, LeBron going to another NBA Finals at 40 years old would only, look, if you know me, you know I would then be as insufferable as a human being. Like I would randomly be texting people to start the goat fight just midday on a Tuesday with
This
another
assumes you
feather.
don't do this now, by the way. That's a big assumption to make.
Yeah, yeah. No. I mean, I do. I mean, just imagine putting another feather in the cap, how bad I would be. But I think the main reason it wouldn't perturb me is because, at 25, I'm much more interested in seeing Luca's success. I'm much more excited to see sort of, him. I mean, I'm one of the ones who think that, the expectations of Luca at 25 years old are utterly insane, where people say he doesn't play a winning style of basketball, yet he's made 2 Western Conference finals and an NBA finals. He's a perennial MVP candidate. He puts up just ungodly numbers constantly and makes his teammates better. So like I struggle with that narrative, and therefore I think he's already had great success and isn't an NBA champion because he ran into the aforementioned Boston Celtics team that had all of those pieces on it. But I think that I'm real excited to see Luka hold up a trophy, win an MVP. And so that would obviously be my desired outcome if them two were to meet in a series. But if the consolation prize is I get to just troll every Jordan fan that I know with LeBron being the GOAT because he's in another NBA Finals at 40, I'll take the consolation prize and go about my business.
Oh God, I hadn't considered.
And my business will be annoying people.
I had not considered that this would make it more likely that you're going to be insufferable about LeBron by making his chances of winning a title better. So I might have to just rescind my support of the trade preemptively in that case.
And I mean, like, look, dude. I mean, if the trade happens, I just become insufferable for such a long period of time because then I'm just like constantly like Dallas Mavericks are the best team in the West. Luka's the MVP. This is going to be the year that he wins a title. Like you got to listen to all that, but then now you're also going to be like, oh, you don't think he's going to make the finals, so you do think LeBron's going to his another finals in his 40th at 40 years old. So like it doesn't matter at all. Like I'm insufferable for 4 months if this trade happens. So literally everybody should be praying to whatever god they worship that it doesn't happen.
On that note, all right. Yeah, thank you all. We've had a great sort of boost in viewership this past week. It's been really heartwarming. We've been doing this pod now for just over 2 months, and so I appreciate everyone who takes time to sort of watch our content on YouTube, listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to it. We really appreciate it. All the nice notes we've gotten in the comment section and emails we've gotten, and we just wanted to say thank you. And as always, liking, subscribing, everything we do just helps grow the channel, helps grow the pod, and helps us continue to do this. So if you have a chance and you haven't done that already, we'd love for you to, go on YouTube, go on our pod page and, just add a like, add a 5-star review. Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate everybody who's watching and listening, and share it with your friends and family. Thanks a lot. See y'all next time.